A few months ago, we went to see Fiddler on the Roof. For my kids, it was their first time. And it felt good to initiate them into this icon of Jewish life. And when it was over, my son Yosef turned to me with a confused look on his face. "Abba," he said, "I thought this was supposed to be a comedy." Now, Fiddler on the Roof has been around since 1964. Literally, a day has not gone by since then that Fiddler has not been performed somewhere on this planet. The story of Eastern European Jewry, the tensions with modernity, the omnipresent threat of violence and expulsion faced by Jews have been obvious, indeed ubiquitous components of Jewish life, whether the lived experience of our grandparents' generation or the literary experience as reflected in Fiddler, Isaac Bashevis Singer, Philip Roth, and countless others. But more correctly, these have been ubiquitous components of the Jewish lives of the boomers among us. For our children, our millennials and Gen Xers, not so much. They are so far removed from Fiddler's perception of Judaism that we might as well be talking about some jungle tribe in Burkina Faso or the Franco-Prussian War. In a word, that night at Fiddler made it clear to me that our younger generation is not woke to the realities of Jewish history, where we have come from, where we are now, and where we are going. And that set me to thinking, to what else are we not woke? What else is there out there about which we should be aware, but about which we are, willfully or not, unaware? And unawareness really is the issue. What we do know is like the air we breathe, like water for a fish. It's simply there and we don't have to think about it. But that makes it all too easy to imagine that what we know is all there is to know. And so we go about our business totally unaware of what we're missing, unaware of all of that to which we are not woke. So that is what my sermons are going to be about during these high holy days, getting woke. Now, before you react the same way all three of my children did when I told them I was going to give sermons about being woke, their response was, "Okay, boomer." I want to remind you of Maimonides' challenge to us when we hear the shofar being blown, which we will tomorrow. Awake from your slumber and rouse yourselves from your lethargy. Scrutinize your deeds and return in repentance. Remember your Creator, you who forget eternal truth in the trifles of the hour, who go astray after vain illusions, which can neither profit nor deliver. Now, I really can't imagine Maimonides ever using the word woke, but he too recognized the remarkable human ability to ignore reality. To transcend the temptation of self-delusion requires more than simply being rational. Somehow the veil we put over our consciousness, the sleep-like lack of awareness of our prejudice and ignorance, has to be torn away, ripped off like a bandage over a wound. The sound of the shofar, the gut-wrenching, eerie, primal, anything but rational scream of the shofar is our wake-up clock, if not woke-up clock. So over the course of these holy days, I will be addressing 4 ways in which we are not woke, and suggest ways to grasp more accurately the realities in which we find ourselves. We are not woke to our Jewish history and its relationship to our current day and our future. We are not woke to the need for wisdom and its demands on us. We are not woke to our community and what it ultimately means for us. And finally, we are not woke to the deeper meaning of our lives, the fragility and precious urgency of every moment. So today I will focus on becoming woke to our past and our present in order to understand our future. Now, here are two pictures of Judaism. I want you to tell me which one is true. Jews are arguably the most harried people in history. We have been the subject of degradation, dehumanization, demonization, discrimination, violence, exile, and extermination. The state of Israel and the United States offer us some respite from this harassment. But we are still the victims of terror attacks, synagogue shootings, unceasing anti-Semitic activity, and a relentless genocidal campaign to drive us all into the sea. We are attacked from the left, from the right, from Christians, from Muslims, and from everyone in between. Whether it's Rashida Tlaib and Linda Sarsour over here, or QAnon loonies and gun-toting right-wing fanatics over there, or Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, Islamic Jihad, and a host of thousands seemingly everywhere, they're all out to get us. Not least the Palestinians, who have been the driving force behind terrorism for the past 50 years. That's one picture. Here's another picture. Jews are the single most admired ethnic group in America, with positions of power and influence far, far beyond what our meager numbers would suggest. 15 of President Trump's top officials are Jewish, including Jared, Ivanka, and the Secretary of the Treasury. 3 of 9 Supreme Court justices, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, may the memory of the righteous be a blessing, are Jews. 4 out of the last 5 chairs of the Federal Reserve were Jews. And no matter who wins the upcoming election, there will be Jewish in-laws in the White House, whether Jared Kushner or all 3 of Biden's children who married Jews, as well as Kamala Mamala Harris. Yes, anti-Semitism rears its ugly head occasionally, to be sure, but has almost no practical impact on our lives. As far as the Jews of Israel are concerned, Israel has one of the most powerful armies in the world, light years ahead of any other regional force. On a per capita basis, it's wealthier than most European countries and is a world leader in virtually every science that matters. The United Arab Emirates and Bahrain have just made peace with Israel, and there's good reason to believe that more of Israel's Arab neighbors have accepted the legitimacy of the Jewish state. The Palestinians are by far the weaker party in the conflict, and the Israelis, frankly, have more problems controlling their power and assuring that it is used morally and judiciously than they do actually controlling the Palestinians. So, friends, 2 pictures. One ominous, painfully negative, the other positive to the point of nearly idyllic. Which one is right? If you pick the first one, as I suspect most of the older people listening did, you haven't fully grasped how powerful we are. And that has 2 unfortunate consequences. First, if we don't understand how powerful we are consequently not up to ensuring that the use of our power is temperate and moral. And second, we can't understand those who treat us as a power elite, a privileged part of the white establishment. Jews, the establishment? Yes. Consider, for example, that the single largest gathering of congressmen and senators outside of the State of the Union address is the AIPAC conference. That being the case, it is ludicrous for us to tut-tut and clutch our pearls when someone dares to point out that Jews have a lot of influence in Washington. If, on the other hand, you picked the second positive perspective, as I suspect most of our young people did, you haven't fully grasped how vulnerable we are, and that has two unfortunate consequences. First, it causes us to underestimate how real, powerful, and truly nefarious our enemies are. And second, it shows we are unaware how utterly unprecedented and quite possibly temporary our current power is, and why and how carefully it must be protected, nurtured, and even enhanced. When, for example, a Jew supports a military boycott of Israel, as Jewish Voices for Peace, If Not Now, and BDS supporters do, it must surely rank as one of the most bizarre turns of fate in the history of Western civilization. The last Holocaust survivors still walk among us. May they all live to 120. And did Jews suggest it's good policy to make Jews weaker? I am reminded of the German poet Friedrich Schiller's expression, "Against stupidity, even the gods fight in vain." My friends, the truth is, it's neither vision 1 nor vision 2. It is both. If you picked either one or the other, you ain't woke. If we are, in Maimonides' words, slumbering, we are painfully unprepared for our Jewish future. We either underestimate our power, which will surely lead to its abuse, or else we will underestimate how precarious our security is, which will surely leave us open to attack from any combination of enemies and circumstances. So for all our sakes, we must wake up. What does that mean in practical terms? First and foremost, learning. All of us, young and old, but especially the young, need to know our history, the protean manifestations of anti-Semitism, the devastating consequences of powerlessness, the transformation of Jewish stature and self-esteem that has taken place, miraculously, I should add, as a result of the Zionist movement. But then, after learning, discernment. Here is not there. Spray painting free Palestine on a synagogue that flies the Israeli flag is not a pogrom. Joe Biden is not genocidal because he believes in a two-state solution. Supporting Black Lives Matter is not anti-Semitic simply because there are anti-Semites like Farrakhan who also support it. And then, after learning and discernment, integrity. Stephen Miller, special advisor to the president and architect of our current immigration policy, was asked his thoughts about the poem by Emma Lazarus that stands at the foot of the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. And he derided the poem and said it was not consistent with the original intent of the statue. Now, Stephen Miller, and frankly, all the rest of us, are here today precisely because of that openness. To take in the welcome mat for all the wretched refuse and the homeless, as described in Lazarus's classic poem, is about as serious and hypocritical a betrayal of both American and Jewish values as I can imagine, and an unparalleled exercise of privilege. For a Jew of all people to drive a wedge between liberty and immigration to America is, as my grandmother would say, nothing less than a shanda for the goyim, an embarrassment to the entire Jewish community. Similarly, the blatant and unthinking racism and misogyny that can be heard in certain circles in Israel should disgust us as well. One can find all sorts of rationalizations for it, but at the end of the day, they are the fruit of the abuse of power that inexorably results from moral slumber. We need to wake up. For everyone's sake, we need to wake up. We need to see clearly that our future relies on a most delicate balance, a judicious balance of power and the restraint of power. The rabbis were not kidding when they said that on Rosh Hashanah, the future of the world is being measured on a scale, and imbalance in any direction can disgrace us and destroy us. So awake, arise from your slumber.